Good morning and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. It is Wednesday, and of course, lots going on, but we start with the man on the screen there, the death of Peebo Bryson, the silky voiced balladeer whose songs became the soundtrack for countless romances and whose remarkable career uh, went from black radio, adult contemporary music, and Hollywood soundtracks. He died at the age of 75. Peebo represented a rare kind of vocalist at a time when R&B often shifted with changing trends. His tenor, I mean, very rich tenor, remained one of the most instantly recognizable voices in music, whether singing a solo or alongside some of music's most celebrated women. Peebo built such a catalog that defined modern love songs. Um, he also was able to earn the respect of audiences across racial, cultural, and generational lines. Um, he was born in South Carolina on April 13th, 1951. He grew up singing in church and listening to artists whose styles would later influence his own approach to music. And long before his Grammy Awards and Platinum Records, he was a young performer with an unmistakable voice. And his ambition is what really was at the root of his success. I mean, there was so many great recordings from Peebo Bryson. Um, Feel the Fire, many remember that. I'm So Into You, Reaching for the Sky, Let the Feeling Flow. And all of these really defined him. And of course, there was If Ever You're in My Arms Again with Roberta Flack. Um, and then, of course, there was, of course, Tonight I Celebrate My Love. But then the Beauty and the Beast came along with Celine Dion. And that's when he really got the notoriety that he so well deserved. And then he joined Regina Bell on A Whole New World with Aladdin. That reached number one on the Billboard 100 charts. So this guy had Can You Stop the Rain, Show and Tell, Take No Prisoners. Peebo Bryson was truly an icon. His final studio album, Stand for Love, was released in 2018. And his family said in a statement that while our hearts are broken, we find comfort in knowing how deeply Peebo was loved and how many lives were touched by his voice and his generous spirit. His legacy in music will live on for generations to come. Absolutely. Peebo Bryson, 75 years old. Um, what a talent. And RNG is starting the morning with those judges, Clarence Thomas and his crew, Uncle Thomas and his crew, allowing the racial gerrymandering in Alabama. It's so interesting. Um, the lower court did say that the maps were based on race, and it's so interesting when you hear John Roberts and even Uncle Thomas claim that they're not bought and paid for, and it's nothing about it's not about racism. It's so interesting because voters in a lot of these states, the Democratic states, now Alabama, of course, not a Democratic state, but the voters in Democratic states determined the maps recently, right? And they've been ruling against the voters. Whereas in these red states, like Alabama, the racist Congress people, their state representatives or whatever you want to call them, draw these maps. They get contested, and Uncle Thomas and his crew say, "Yeah, that's what we want." They can't. It's stop trying to hide it. Wait, it's like if there's one thing that you can respect about Trump is that he no longer tries to hide his shenanigans. It's just, "Hey, it is what it is. This is what I'm doing." But the John Roberts' court try to tell you, "No, we're going by, the letter of the law or the law or whatever." It's a flat out lie. They have been commissioned by the president to carry his water, and that's the bottom line. There's just be honest about it at this point. What do you got to lose? It's like Trump said to his, folks, to those, Stephen Fetchers of the world, "What do you got to lose? Just put it all out there." Look at Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is the epitome of the man says jump, you say how high. The man says drop your drawers. Lindsey is right there. Lindsey's like, I'm already greased up when it comes to Trump. Let's be real. How do you have such spineless people supposed to be in position of making laws? Southbound says, is it set in stone to be unable to vote or change the term limit of the Supreme Court judges? No, they can, but Congress, I think you certainly need a certain amount of, I think it's 2/3. I think it's 2/3 vote. Somebody can correct me, on that, but I think you need 2/3 of both, I think Congress needs to initiate it. They have to pass it, and you need 2/3 of the Senate. But as long as this current makeup, as you know, Southbound, it'll never happen under this current Congress. Um, that's just the bottom line. But I think there's been talk of if they are able to somehow get a new administration in and win both the House and Senate, that you will see those changes. And again, that's another point where Joe Biden failed miserably. The idea that you wasn't going to expand the court, the idea that you wasn't going to even consider the makeup of the court, whether you can expand it or the other ways to kind of even things out. Because really, you don't want whether you liberal or conservative, you don't want what you would want is an even thing here, and perhaps then you'd get some rulings that make sense, that are truly based on law and not on political leanings and racial leanings, because that's all you got now, political and racial leaning. And to this story here, this is and RNG talked about this a little bit yesterday. He wrote about this, and we kind of touched on this yesterday. But South Carolina jury's decision to acquit convenience store owner Rick Chow and the killing of 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton has reopened a wound that never healed, and we will never get healing the way this country is going. Chow shot this young kid, 14 years old, Cyrus, in the back. In the back. Now, police are not even allowed, supposedly not even allowed to shoot you in the back. Prosecutors said that, in fact, um, Cyrus was wrongly accused of stealing water. He had money in his hand, and he never threatened anyone, prosecutors said. The defense team did counter that Chow acted to protect his son after the teen allegedly pointed a handgun at him. After nearly 9 hours of deliberation, the jury found that child was not guilty of murder. Cyrus's family immediately said that they would uh, continue to fight this through a civil lawsuit. There were protests outside the courthouse, um, but this was like the central facts of this case was never uh, in dispute. He chased this 14-year-old more than 130 yards. You call that self-defense? After 130 yards, after a yard, it's no longer self-defense. You're talking about 130 yards here. He was shot in the back, and no one that they canvassed the neighborhood, none of the eyewitnesses said that they saw this boy point a gun at all. The only people who said, "Oh, he had a gun," was the Child family. Of course they said that. And it's like we said yesterday, this case is, uh, it reminds of the 1991 when Latasha Harlins, the 15-year-old, was shot and killed by, I think it was a Korean grocery store owner in Los Angeles, wrongly accusing her of stealing orange juice, and the store owner got probation in that case. Probation and community service. Yeah, Tennessee versus Gardner. You can't shoot a fleeing suspect. So how does if that applies to police officers, how does that not apply to this store owner? Sue Kim shot her. Yep. Dr. Nicole says, hopefully at least this family no longer is in business. If they are, then no one of color should ever go back there. You would hope not. Southbound says, forget the courthouse. It's an all-out group economic boycott of that store. And that's what Dr. Nicole was just saying. It's no way under any circumstance. There's no way you patronize this store. No way. I couldn't. There's no way I could. 'Cause my thinking, and I'm not even talking about like protests, this and that. My thinking is you got away with clearly got away with murder, shooting somebody in the back. Now you walking around like you got a license to kill. Okay, so Orange says that store has been closed for 2 years. I guess after the incident, that was it. Thanks for the update. He's like, no need to get all upset. It's been taken care of. Dr. Nicole says, yes, they have been getting away with this behavior in our neighborhoods for decades. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And some of these establishments, you go to them and they are, for me, it's a one-time thing because when the rude the first time, never get a second chance. But they're so rude to black folks, and it's not your neighborhood. Well, this story, this black health, black women health, I tell you. Um, this Houston mother of four, she's alive today after spending years battling heart failure that steadily worsened despite treatment. Well, they misdiagnosed her, is really what happened here. Lakeisha Brown, she first sought medical help in 2018 after experiencing chest heaviness, breathing problems, heart palpitations, and nausea. Doctors told her they gave her every excuse in the book, heartburn and everything else. Don't worry about it. Take two. Call me in the morning. Well, tests eventually showed her heart was functioning at about just 20%. And she was diagnosed eventually with congestive heart failure. Well, over the next several years, her condition continued to decline, and by late 2021, her heart function had fallen to just 6%, and multiple organs were beginning to fail. Doctors told her she needed a heart transplant to survive. Well, instead, Lakeisha received a HeartMate 3 left ventricular, how you say that? I'm trying to say a word here, a mechanical pump. This device she got in January 2022, and, it was a mechanical pump that helped keep her alive, and she waited for this donor, this heart donor, and after nearly 3 years on the transplant list, she did receive a heart transplant in November of 2024, and now she has been talking to others about how to talk to your doctors particularly as a Black woman. Don't ignore your symptoms. Even when the doctor's telling you something different, there's second opinions, there's third opinions. But what happened to Lakeisha is part of the healthcare that too many people have been talking about, how they ignore this, particularly when it comes to Black women. She originally went to urgent care, 44 years old, complaining of chest pressure, nausea, migraines, and heart palpitations. And they told her pretty much that, the only problem you have is anxiety. They wrote her off. How many times do we hear these stories? Black women have been told their symptoms are nothing more than stress, anxiety, not serious. You're overreacting. I mean, she was a full-time business owner, running her business. You have to so really, it is incumbent upon Black women to really know your bodies, know your health situation. I'm, very fortunate. My mom, she kept up with her health. She still does. She keeps up with her health so much. Years ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, but she was the one who knew something was wrong immediately, and that's really what saved her, because she knew there's something not quite right, and she got that second opinion when they were "Oh, you got nothing to worry about." But I know my body. And this happens all the time, with, Black women. It's not some of the time, it's not most of the time, it's just about every single time. Real briefly going back to that, store owner, RNG says that the store itself is guarded by the local police as we speak. Hmm, interesting. Uh, well, it is, graduation time, and graduations are happening everywhere. But the class of 2026 is stepping into one of the toughest job markets in memory. Recent college graduates are facing an unemployment rate of about 5.6%. They're getting up into the Black unemployment area. The national rate right now, really, the white unemployment rate is about 4.2%. But underemployment is also climbing, meaning many graduates are taking jobs that do not require a college degree while they search for work in their chosen fields. Employers are hiring more slowly than ever. Job searches are taking much longer, and competition for entry level positions have intensified. So they can't even get entry level positions after going into all the student loan debt. Economists at the New York Federal Reserve have found that the rise of remote work has made companies less willing to hire and train inexperienced workers. And of course, AI has remained a problem, or like at least a concern for many students who are graduating. Um, Many of these young students, they're finding that this degree alone is no longer enough. Employees or employers, I should say, they say now they are increasingly wanting experience, skills, and professional networks before offering a first opportunity. And here's what also hurts badly. We talk about student loan debt and how much it costs the tuition and all of that. Well, the average college student say they expect to earn at least $80,000 after graduating, which if you're a single person, depending on where you live, that's not bad. That's what they expect. But what they're getting, according to Clever Real Estate, a new survey they did, they're getting about 56,000 a year when they do get offered a job. And in a lot of places, $56,000 a year only covers rent for the year. So the average full time employee who are in college age range from 18 to 25 with a bachelor's degree earns about $56,000 and is being offered about $56,000 tops. This is not what they went to school for. Okay, I gotta check the video out. The thing about it, Southbound says, is all the high paying jobs are coming through skilled trade school. How about that? Trade school. How about that? And yes, Orange, you what's from thinking on that 80K? And 80K isn't a lot of money, but they can't get it. It's not a lot of money, particularly in the economy that we find ourselves in. And trade school has been the way to go. It is something that our community, black and brown folks in particular, used to really champion a lot. I don't know that that's the case now or it's not the case, but I know that used to be the big thing. Go get a trade, go get a trade. And again, we see the wisdom of the elders. Go get a trade because it is true that the trades, when you get a trade, they are paying a whole lot more than those who now have college degrees. And it's unfortunate in that sense for them because you work so hard. The toughest, one of the toughest things to come by is a college degree. And imagine those with multiple degrees. All right, we're gonna go into this story here. This, another influencer, a Brazilian influencer, has died, um, and why? Um, Brazilian butt lift. And we're seeing this that Grammy-nominated singer, K. Michelle says she's spent years paying for the decision she regrets. One of the biggest stars in music, Cardi B, is now planning yet another surgery to remove the enhancements that she once thought she wanted. At some point, the question has to be asked: what exactly are these women chasing? Rosalie Fernandez, 48 years old. She has a longer name than Rosalie Fernandez. I'm just not into it. content creator from Brazil. She died less than 24 hours after undergoing a butt augmentation procedure involving PMMA injections. According to police reports, she began suffering severe pain, lost consciousness on her way back to the clinic, and was pronounced dead after she arrived there. Um, and it's not an isolated story. See, as we said, K. Michelle, Cardi B, you go down the line. Um, we talk about K. Michelle. She said she spent nearly a decade warning women about the consequences of illegal silicone injections. She's undergone multiple surgeries, blood transfusions, reconstructive procedures, and recently suffered another medical emergency when the injections began leaking and doctors discovered an infection requiring additional surgery. Her story should be more than just a cautionary tale. And then there's Cardi B. She has openly discussed paying $800 for illegal injections in a basement when she was younger. And years later, she underwent multiple procedures to remove certain things, and she recently revealed more plans to have more removed because the process she said takes several rounds, and she's now warning other women not to follow the same path. Yet they still are going on, and now this influencer is dead a day after. When she says another victim of the fix up flat butt lift. It's like I know that in some of these cases, and maybe in a lot of these cases, the women, it could be a self-esteem issue. I just remember that crazy, unhinged Nicki Minaj talking about the pressure of that Lil Wayne and others indirectly, um, put on her, but the idea that and you look at like I mentioned Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, you look at photos of them from years ago, before all of the craziness, eh, pretty nice looking young lady. Far from it now, if you ask me. I don't find them attractive at all, and I know there's a lot of other people who feel the same way. Dr. Nicole says, "Oh my, that's so sad. Just like these decent young flies wife years ago, Jackie O, I think was her name, leaving him with all their children." Yes, DJ Young Fly, right? Um, And Dr. Nicole says, and at least Cardi B can afford to get them removed. I'm sure that's not cheap either. So many others are stuck with them. Exactly. And what happens when, and I think, with the other surgeries, the uh, uh, injections in the face and the lips to make the lips look like they are otherworldly. What happens when, do you ever think what happens if they get old? If they get older, how much more hideous that's going to be? Oh, it's DC. Okay, DC Young Fly. I thought it was DJ Young Fly. Okay. I don't. Lil Wayne looks like ET. I wouldn't take advice from him, Oranges. Lil Wayne be phoning home. Listen, Prince said it a long time ago. When you start looking at how ugly some of these people are in appearance, some of these dudes, you know that there's no difference in certain women's eyes. If you got money, no matter how cringeworthy your face may be, to them, you look good. All they seeing is the green. That's it. And come on, y'all be real. And this is not player hating or nothing. But some of these dudes, I'm talking about entertain and those in entertainment, whether it be rap or acting or whatever. And probably not acting as much because I think one of the criterias of having some roles, having and going on the screen, you have to look decent at least. So really, the musicians and the rappers, some of these dudes are just if they didn't have any money, if they didn't have fame, y'all know many of these women would look right past them as if they were bugs. They'd stomp them. Come on. I mean, let's be real. Michelle Michelle says, "I don't get it. I don't get the butt lifts at all." I think it's a self-esteem issue in a lot of cases, and then there are some cases where I think you find a woman or women who say, "Well, if I had, this for themselves, it's not for somebody else. If I, did this or whatever, they feel better about themselves." Uh-oh, Dr. Cole, I think there's some pushback on your DC Young Fly. Southbound says, folks were saying DC Young Fly pressured her to get all that mess, and we know she wasn't going to say no. Oh, it was that type of party, a Diddy party, huh? You do what I tell you to do, which is crazy. It's absolutely nuts. But I just think there's a lot of things here, but peer pressure is probably the biggest, and keeping up with the Kardashians is another. I don't like those people. Can you tell? Uh, well, the NBA Finals has finally arrived. Yes, indeed, the NBA Finals has arrived, and the NBA couldn't have scripted a bigger finals. The New York Knicks are back in the championship round, RNG, for the first time since 1999, and once again, they're facing the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, uh, to both teams totally different from the '99 teams. The excitement has turned New York into a basketball frenzy. Knicks watch party tickets reportedly disappeared within an hour. Now, I checked it out because I was curious. Went on Ticketmaster. Just I wanted to see what they actually charged to go to the Garden for a watch party for game 1, which is tonight in San Antonio. And the thing popped up. You are number 100 and something thousand 255 online. The Garden only holds 19,000 people. So New York has really gone all out. They have watch parties throughout the city. The Knickerbocker Hotel has a big one. Um, and of course, all of the bars and they won't allow. I think Radio City Music Hall will have one as well. They won't allow it to be at the plaza at the Garden on 33rd Street. The cops put a halt to that. Um, but it's gonna be interesting to see the trophy on the floor of the Garden for the first time because they changed the designs for the finals, and the Knicks haven't been in the finals since they changed the design. Tickets for a finals game at the Garden are topping just to get in the door $4,000. It's absolutely preposterous that they have priced out real fans. These people that you see, they can't go in the Garden. They are not allowed in the Garden unless I mean they mortgage their house or whatever. It's absolutely preposterous. The Spike Lee seats are going for like 120,000 for one game, one ticket. This it should be outlawed. These attorneys generals have gone after Ticketmaster for the fees and things like. How about going after the the, the venues and the sports teams and others for these outrageous prices? You go to the game all year and people may pay, $100, a couple $100 for a ticket, and then calendar turns to May and June, and now you want, you know, 12, 13 times that amount. He said, "My TV works just fine for me. 4,000 to watch the Knicks? No way." Listen, RNG, if there's one team worth paying the 4,000, it's the Knicks. We won't have that hate. The Knicks are riding the leadership of Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Um, and of course, they got the wing stop going, working at their best with OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. And don't forget Josh, the heart of the team. But whether the Knicks finally end their championship drought or Wemby begins building what is probably going to be a dynasty out in San Antonio, one thing is clear: the finals have become bigger than basketball itself. And the other thing that's clear, and I was talking about this yesterday, when it comes to New York sports, and there is, I don't care what anybody says, they're always talking about their sports towns being this and that. There's nothing like New York sports. But when it comes to New York sports, the king of New York sports is the New York Knicks, because the city does it responds when the Yankees are winning, it responds when the Mets are winning, and when the Rangers, of course, are winning, the Giants, the Jets, scratch the Jets, they never win. Um, but they do not respond as hard and as vociferous as they do when the Knicks are winning. It's a Knick town. New York City, the Big Apple, the biggest market in the world, is a New York Knicks town. It's like going to Brazil or England to the soccer matches. That's how it is with the New York Knicks in New York City. Really, really cool. I got a story for, RNG's gonna love this story. I've got a great story for you. Who's in my comment? Okay. Dr. Nicole says, Nick fan here. I agree with RNG. 4K is way too much. My TV works just fine. Plus, I could buy 4 more TVs for that amount. Well, TVs are cheaper than ever, I think. So you probably can buy more than 4. Plus, I'm telling you, it's no way, no way. Um, and understand those who have season plans, their prices don't change much at all for the playoffs because they have season plans. Those without season plans, you're you're looking at, if you're dreaming of getting into the Garden, at least $4,000. San Antonio, by the way, so when the tickets went on sale in San Antonio after they won, the cheapest ticket there was kind of matching what was going on at Madison Square Garden. It was about $3,000. I was like, wow. 'Cause somebody called me about a ticket, for, MSG, and I was like, "Well, can't help you out, bro, can't help you out." And I said, it'd be cheaper for you to fly to San Antonio. The plane and hotel and the ticket will probably be less than what it costs to get in the Garden." But lo and behold, I looked when San Antonio beat Oklahoma City, and it was like $3,200 the cheapest ticket in San Antonio for game 1 tonight. I thought, "Wow, in San Antonio?" Well, somebody fixed that. San Antonio Spurs, perhaps, fixed that. Now, you can get in for $500. That's a far cry from $3,200. Perhaps they fixed it because San Antonio residents were like, "Hey, we're not spending that type of money." And the last thing you want 2 things. 1, is a half empty arena for the NBA Finals, and that half empty was simply not because they're not interested in the Spurs, but because they're not paying $3,200 to get in. But number 2, as the Cleveland Cavaliers discovered, certainly the Philadelphia Sixers discovered, and the Atlanta Hawks discovered, when it comes to Knicks and Knicks fans, they travel and they travel well. So you'd have an arena in the NBA Finals half full of Knicks fans, and you still may get that. I'm still I was surprised at how many Knicks fans were in Cleveland. It happens all the time in Philadelphia. It happens all the time in Atlanta, and they go south. Whether it's Miami, Orlando, there's gonna be Knicks fans galore in those arenas. Philadelphia is always Madison Square Garden South. But I was surprised about Cleveland, how many Knicks fans were in Cleveland. You probably if the arena in Cleveland holds 20,000, you probably had 8,000 Knicks fans in there. Just to give you an idea, in Philadelphia, of the 20,000, you probably have 13,000 Knicks fans. They outnumbered the Sixers. It would look like the Garden. ONG says the Knicks bandwagon fan base is out of control. I haven't seen this many Knicks jerseys since 1999. Yeah, I kinda reject the bandwagon jumpers because they as quick as they're on, they jump right off. I roll with the, long-suffering guys. But here's a story for you, RNG. Um, RNG is the king of Freaknik, and, Shula King found one interesting story to talk about when it comes to Freaknik.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I know you playing with me. I know this fake. Ain't no way in the world it's real. A Texas pastor, female pastor, tried to sue Hulu over some Freaknik documentary and lost. Hey, look here. Whatever you did back then, that what happened. That's what happened. You on the Freaknik documentary, I wouldn't have said nothing. If I had got caught on the Freaknik documentary, I wouldn't have said a damn thing. Cause now everybody, you know what I mean? Now everybody going looking. Everybody finna go look now. You done put out a whole kit. Like, who said something? We had done forgot that damn documentary was even out there. Now here you go. I'ma sue somebody. Who? You was shaking your ass. Didn't nobody make you do that? You went down there. You from Texas. You went all the way to Atlanta to stand on cars and walk them down the street, shake your ass. That's what you did. Now, who you suing? Who you suing? It's your fault, Pastor.
Oh my gosh. And RNG, of course, says, "Long live Freaknik 94. That pastor was shaking her demons out in the 90s. Let the good Lord use her." He's absolutely right. I was gonna bring that story up, but I saw Shula King talk about it. I said, let's Shula King talk about it. Oh my goodness. Uh, there is on Netflix starting tonight, a series, a documentary that I participated in, filmed over a year or so ago. It's on Michael Jackson's trial from 2005. And I want to just set the record straight on that. I've seen a lot of talk on social media about it. Tom Mesereau is in it. The prosecutors from the trial is in it. Some others. Guy that I like, J. Randy Taraborelli, who is the definitive biographer of Michael Jackson. I believe he's in it. And Jay Randy actually threw this great party. My wife and I attended in the Hollywood Hills some years back after the trial was over with. Um, and I'm seeing stuff. People are just criticizing this documentary, and nobody's seen it. To my knowledge, I haven't even seen it. But how it was pitched and how I participated, it was just a recap. It was supposed to be done last year. Was the what 20th anniversary of the trial, and I thought they would air it last year, and it just made sense. They wanted to do a recap. They were saying we're going to go day by day of what happened in the trial. I was there every day, of course, and I also testified in the trial. Um, and the impression that people have, and they're saying boycott Netflix and things of that nature. The impression is that it's going to be negative. Let's remember that Michael Jackson was acquitted on all 13 counts or 14 counts that they brought against him in 2005. And so it can't be that bad, right? And I, without giving it all away, I just, my part, I remember being asked questions about Debbie Rowe, Michael Jackson's ex-wife, the mother of his kids. Um, and I'm thinking, why are you asking that? And my response to the Debbie Rowe question was that why was the prosecutors foolish enough to call her as a witness? There was, regardless of how upset she may have been with Michael at the time, she was never going to get on that stand in front of Michael or in front of anybody really and go against him. It was the most ridiculous eyewitness. I thought one of the most ridiculous eyewitnesses witnesses that the prosecution team called. And Debbie, true to form, she got on the stand as a prosecution witness, and she sang the praises of Michael Jackson. And I remember standing there as she sat and talked about Michael, how loving and caring, etc., etc. She had a lot to lose if she would have lost her mind and went against him. And then they asked questions about Wade Robson, James Safechuck, two people who are currently in litigation with the Jackson estate. And Wade he testified for Michael Jackson at the trial. And he was very, very succinct. Nothing ever happened. He couldn't believe that there were even charges against Michael Jackson. Safechuck did not appear at the trial. He refused to testify for Michael. But the Netflix documentary, Brian Oxman, who, and this is Brian Oxman is, for those who don't know, and I may have said this in the documentary, that the last half of Michael's life, the last 25 years of life, he's really was as separated from his brothers and sisters as possible. Latoya may have been the only one that had more access. Obviously, his mom had unlimited access. But one of the reasons why is because they just can't do and never was able to do what Michael was able to do on the stage, off the stage, business, etc. Randy hired Brian Oxman to represent Michael. Why was Randy in that position in the first place? Well, because Michael was in turmoil, money was low, etc., etc. And Brian Oxman was a disaster. Has always been a disaster. A guy who was disbarred a couple of times. I thought you can only be disbarred once, but reportedly disbarred a couple of times. And he would have saw that trial through. Michael would have been in prison. He would have been convicted. There's no question because Brian Axman would have screwed it up. Tom Mesereau came in on the advice of Johnny Cochran, and Tom Mesereau chewed through the prosecution's case. And when you talk about the standard of American justice of reasonable doubt, Tom Mesereau mastered it when it came to Michael Jackson. I don't know what happened to Tom Mesereau when it's a whole nother story when he represented Bill Cosby. But that Tom Mesereau who represented Michael Jackson, it was like watching a white Johnny Cochran. Yeah, the white version of Johnny Cochran. And I know they were friends, but to see it up close and personal and to witness that, the type of lawyering, the type of defense that Tom Mesereau put on for Michael Jackson was legendary. So all of that, I'm just putting in context of how I see 21 years later and how I saw it then in the moment. I saw it in the moment. Listen, Tom Mesereau questioned me on the witness stand. You may not, and I may not have liked the way he did it, but a lawyer is not going to care how you or you or you or you or even the judge views how he defends his client. His client is the only one that has to like it, and he's there for your client, for his client. Tom Mesereau was a get out of jail free card. Not, and again, I'm not changing the verdict. He was simply he did the job that if Brian Oxman, as to take words from Muhammad Ali, if Brian Oxman dreamed he did that job, he needed to wake up and apologize. But there's a lot of folks in the documentary, and I think it's over 3 nights or 5 nights or something that they're gonna air this starting tonight. I'm preoccupied. It's game 1, and so Netflix can have it. It's game 1 tonight. Tonight. Dr. Nicole says, "Why they release it now to diminish the success of the movie?" So people are saying that. I don't necessarily agree with that, only because being involved in it, and I know that they shot for deadlines. They had deadlines, they missed some deadlines, and then even as early as and I had refused the callbacks this year. They was trying to reshoot some things. I just refused. I flat out refused. I didn't wanna be involved. Initially, I didn't wanna be involved either. I wasn't too keen on it. And they happened to be filming in DC, and I was gonna be in DC at the same time, and they kept calling, and someone else called me who I know and like a lot, and I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And of course, write me a check. Cash App. Um, and so I think the goal was to get it out ahead of this movie, before this movie. I think the original goal was to get it out last year on the 20th anniversary because it only made sense. But seeing the success of the movie, it hadn't. I don't. It really didn't have, from my knowledge, from what I understand and see, it had nothing to do with trying to cash in on the movie. Um, Dr. Cole said it should not even be about being with him or against him. It really should be about just the truth, and that was how they pitched it. Just we're not, and they made this. They kept saying this too, which I don't know why they kept saying it. And maybe they said it for a reason. Maybe it's true, but they kept saying we don't care about opinions on guilt or innocence. This is not what this is about. We're not trying to retry this. We're just going through it. and they're gonna have reenactments and everything in there. And so they kept saying that though. This is not about guilt or innocence. It's like, well, it can't be because we already been down that road. The jury said what they said. Statement was about the trial, not the documentary. Okay. Did I lose you on something, Dr. Nicole? Diminish the success of the movie. You said because why they releasing it now to diminish the success of the movie, and you said the statement was about the trial, not the documentary. Okay, but nonetheless, things just go over my head. But that's my short spiel on that. RNG says he's going to go off topic. The Louisville police move to fire an officer who shot and killed an unarmed marked man. Where are the murder charges? A naked man, an naked man. Where are the murder charges? Yeah, Louisville's another spot where eh, you're not going to get any justice in Kentucky. Just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. On Friday, folks, got a guest on Friday, acclaimed filmmaker and investigative journalist R.J. Bond will join Let It Be Known to break down the upcoming trial of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis in the murder of Tupac. Of course, R.J. Bond has a docu-series called Tupac, The Cover-Up. It is Black Music Appreciation Month, so we're going to have R.J. Bond on to talk about the great late Tupac Shakur, his murder, his career, and the assumptions that have long been held about this guy, that the rap world and outside the rap world. I've seen a lot of socially conscious stuff that Tupac had said over the years, and you don't have that voice today at all coming out of hip hop. You have too many who are going along capitulating with this administration instead of being more like Tupac, because he wasn't having anything. And it's like the Korean situation and the Asian situation down there we talked about earlier with the killing of the 14-year-old. I guarantee you, based on his history, and he talked about things like that before. You can look it up, but he would be out front and listen. Instead of going to the Roots picnic and dissecting your rap enemies, I think Tupac would have went over there and talked about something like this. This constant killing of young black folks in general, and folks getting away with it. That's probably what he would have used his roots to react to me. And I wasn't even a Tupac fan. Just saying, just based on what we've known about him, what we've learned about him. But today is a different day, right? So Friday, check us out. See you then. Thanks for watching.
Let's go! Let's go, Flav. Hey!